Hey, happy Saturday. Although, again, it's Sunday. I did something different today. It's been a rough weekend. There's been a few things on. A lot of sort of bad news, and things that we're working through that are not very encouraging, is the way I'll put it. So I didn't really plan anything for this message, but I sort of I prayed that God would show me something relevant, whether it's to me or to somebody else, I'm not sure. And I landed on Deuteronomy 34. So today, let's read through Deuteronomy 34. Now I always love the New King James, so that's the one we're gonna read. And the story is entitled Moses Dies on Mount Nebo. So then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo on the top of Pisgah, which is across from Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the lands of Judah as far as the western sea, the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palms, as far as Zoar. Then the Lord said to him, This is the land of which I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give to your descendants. I've caused you to see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no one knows his grave to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not dim, nor his natural vigor diminished. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses ended. Now Joshua the son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. So the children of Israel heeded him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. But since then there has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, in all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt, before Pharaoh, before all his servants, and in all his land, and by all that mighty power, and all the great terror which Moses performed in the sight of Israel. So Moses, this is really interesting. Moses was commanded by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, to confront Pharaoh, which Moses sort of knew the house of Pharaoh quite well. It was brought in from the reeds by Pharaoh's daughter and grew up in the house of Pharaoh. And God told him, okay, your job is to go now and tell Pharaoh, actually, you've got to let go of your millions of slaves that you have currently working for you. Let them go and worship their God. And so there was that whole, there was the plagues, and God showed his signs, as we learned. God showed what his wrath and what his anger is like. And I talked about last week why that's something that we should take very seriously. But then Moses was told by God, okay, you are going to lead these people that I've promised into the land which I promised them. And during the trip there was an incident where God commanded Moses, so the people were thirsty and complaining. And Moses must have been sick of it, because this happened, on and off for 40 years straight through the desert. And God said, okay, if you want water, go and talk to the rock and command it to give you water. Now, in the past, God had instructed Moses to strike the rock. And Moses, I believe it was in frustration, Moses struck the rock. Not just the time God told him to, but the time God told him to talk to the rock as well. And as a result of him disobeying God, God said, okay, the water came regardless. But God said, as a result of you not listening to me, you yourself will not enter the promised land. Crazy. So if Moses died at 120, as this chapter says, then he started leading Israel in his 80s. That's wild. Imagine being 80 and leading, a nation through the desert to a place where God is telling you to go, but you don't really have a plan. And you have to put your entire faith and courage in God, knowing that what He has planned for you is what is best for you. Not having a clue as to, where the next step is. You just listen to God. God says, do this. You say, okay. And then after all of that, you have one bad day. You have a frustration. And fair enough, imagine sort of being somewhere between 80 and 120 years old and having a nation complaining constantly. You read about all the stuff that the Israelites put poor Moses through. And out of frustration, he does what was previously commanded to him, which is to strike the rock. This time he was told to talk, but he knows that this works. And he's like, I'm just annoyed. Smack the rock. That's all it took. That's all it took. God fulfilled his promise to his people, absolutely. It's an annoying little hair. I'm so sorry, I can see that. God fulfilled his promise to give that land to Abraham's descendants. And Moses, here it says, but since then there has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. So this is one of the most highly regarded prophets of all history, and God denied him access. I find that really fascinating, because so we live post-Christ, sort of in the era where Christ has come and the forgiveness of sins has been covered by Jesus' death and resurrection. Back then, they had to perform they had rituals where they had to sacrifice animals in a certain way to cover sin and to do different bits and pieces. But regardless, God had a plan for sin. But we hear again here, that doesn't mean sin was okay. Just because there was a way to cover it, just because there's a way to pay for it, doesn't mean it's okay. Moses, as a leader of that country, of that nation, he was commanded by God, and he did not listen to God's command, and as a result, after living out his 80s to 120s, dealing with that nation through the desert, he was told, no, you yourself will not enter the promised land. That's wild. It is an important reminder that just because our ever-loving and ever-gracious God has purchased us back from the, what we deserve from sin, doesn't mean it's okay to still sin, to still live in sin. It's something we need to take really seriously. It's something, I think about my life, I need to take extremely seriously. Occasionally, like I've got bad habits. I swear a lot. And it's not okay. It's really not. This is just a commentary on we are to follow God. We are to follow God to the T. Now, we are human and we will slip up, but it's not a small deal when we do. And I even just the wording, slip up. No, we are to be perfect and we will sin instead. It's the reality, and it's not okay. We need to pray. We need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We need to pray that God empower us and guide us to that standard that He would have for us, and take sin seriously. Important, I think. There we go. I genuinely and sincerely pray that anybody who hears this, who needed to, that God will work in you, whatever He needs to say to you. I pray that He does, and I pray that you take it on board. Thank you for watching.